Good morning. Today, with the ringing of our peace bowl, we acknowledge that these lands that we love are the ancestral lands of the Yavapai people, and all people belong. Are you having a hard time hearing me? Okay. First video.
My grandmother has never used the word undocumented to describe her existence. In fact, growing up, she never taught me about limitations. Most of the folks on my block shared a similar experience, so there was no dialogue around our status in this country. We don't know where to get fake micas or any other documents needed to work in this country. I never felt alone or depressed. In high school, most of my peers were and continued to be undocumented. So conversations around our status were not important because there was a common understanding that this was a simple reality and not our identity. We were more than the lack of a social security number. I'm beginning a conversation with myself about defining my being by laws that can never summarize my existence. I'm thinking about integration and its ongoing trend to be called American. I'm thinking about words like dreamer and illegal, language that is stagnant, that in no way, shape, or form speaks truth about the complexities of being and the connections that we have as humans beyond borders and political system. It is like defining your being by building fences, telling folks this is me, read the sign. I know the importance of visibility and empowering folks to no longer feel ashamed or embarrassed about their status, but as a person who was taught that el pájaro donde quiera es verde, I'm beginning to question these myths I have learned about my homeland. I'm beginning to address this fear that I have about one day potentially returning to that place that gave birth to me. Why is it that every time I think about my home, my heart stops at the idea of living in poverty, when in reality, I have been living below the poverty line my whole life? There's a social construction in my head that America is better, that America will grant me freedom, that America will grant me proper education, that America is a place of justice, when the reality is that I have never seen the fruit of any of these promises. We're still at the same place since we arrived, under attack, caged, profiled, and subjugated to unjust loss. I am thinking about how damaging it is to label my spirit, my essence, undocumented, taking something so minimal from the physical world and have it manifest in my body. Right now, there is a confusion all around me. There is a national campaign to pass the DREAM Act. Obama passed his Deferred Action Plan. Folks are constantly inviting me to speak about my experience. I cannot help but feel bamboozled. There's a trend of folks writing about us, documenting us, wanting to hear us, wanting us to come out of the shadows, wanting us to feel empowered, but for some reason I cannot seem to get past the fact that we're still not addressing our emotional well-being. Not as undocumented people, but as migrants, displaced people, folks whose hearts have been broken by America's lies. Abuelita's heart is broken. Ella no tiene la lengua para explicarle al presidente de sus milpas de café. She is not a dreamer. There is no deferred action for her, no immigration reform for her. She will never be American. One day she will pack her bags, purchase a plane ticket and return home. She will look at the streets, try to remember how things used to be, but time has not passed since she left. Her comadres have passed. Su casita fell. She will look at the dirt, try to remember where she gave birth to her firstborn. Look at the face of a son she has not seen in decades. She will be weak, spending her days remembering. Abuelita will slowly dig her grave, crawl back into the land that brought her to this journey, return to the center and migrate to the spirit world. There, she will no longer need papers, no longer be poor, no longer ache, no longer be brokenhearted. There, she will whisper to me and remind me that all this is a dream, that one day we will wake up to a place more beautiful than this.
Wow. I listened to that several times at home, and it got to me then and it gets to me now. That was powerful. But good morning, buenos dias, and welcome to Granite Peak Unitarian Universalist Congregation. I'm Kelsey Wilkes, and I am honored to be your worship associate today. We extend a warm welcome to all, This morning's service will veer from the normal and engage heart, soul, and mind. But we will still have coffee and conversation in Davis Hall. If you're joining by Zoom, you can join a breakout room after the service to have conversation with other Zoomies. Now also, if you're joining on Zoom, you don't get to see the slides. So we had some technical issues, and Deidre Schwartz jumped in at the last minute to cover Martin. She's going like this. And bless her for doing this, and our apologies for you not being able to see the slides. But I think on a recording, you could watch it later and see the slides you did not see, but you will be able to hear the words. This is the mission statement of our congregation. We are a compassionate spiritual community that celebrates diversity, nurtures the personal and spiritual growth of all ages, shares our gifts, promotes justice for all, and serves the world we live in. If you're joining for the first time, please check us out on prescottuu.org for more information. And if you're here in person for the first time, there will be a time at the end of the service where you can introduce yourself if you would like to. I want to thank our pianist, Lena Hubin, Russ, who I volunteered to help sing. Didn't tell him about it, but he's good at that. And especially Elaine Hayes and Tracy Augustine, who put together the unusual service and even said to me, "Did you mean to do that?" I was like, "Yes, I did." And then, of course, to Deidre. If you would please take a moment to put your phones on worship mode. I heard one of them announcing that it was time for worship mode. In addition to the announcements that we're showing on the screen before the service, you can read about what's going on at GPUUC in our monthly newsletter, The View, and our weekly Peek. There are also some printed copies in the back of the foyer. I especially want to draw your attention to the Immigration Timeline Workshop that Ren and Monica and our own Sarah Mahler will be facilitating on Tuesday. It's here in Davis Hall from 2 to 4. If you are going to attend, just let me know for planning purposes. I just want to make sure we have enough materials for everybody. Sandra Palacios, our Faith Development Coordinator, is teaching children 5 and older across the street, and we have a nursery in the building for our littles that are under 5. And it is my great pleasure to introduce our speakers. Ren Manning is known to many of us, as they were the social justice coordinator at Granite Peak for 2 years before moving to Tucson. Ren lived in Prescott for 10 years, graduated from Prescott College, and founded a nationally trending scholarship program for undocumented students called Freedom Education Fund. In Prescott, they also co-founded the local drag troupe and a deportation defense network. Ren is currently the co-director and director of education for Border Links in Tucson. Ren is a long-term migrant justice organizer, educator, and scholar, and has traveled globally to research U.S. involvement in the border buildup. They serve on the board of UU Jazz, our state action network. Monica Velasco was born in Oaxaca, Mexico. She is 37 years old and the mother of 3 children. Monica is a delegation leader at Border Links, facilitating programs. She is a member of Paisanos Unidos, where they educate the community as defenders against police and immigration judges and train community leaders. As a Paisanos leader, she works with the network of coalitions of groups affected by immigration laws and provides education to churches. Monica was part of the Southside Workers Center Board of Directors in Tucson in 2016. She is also part of a folklore group at the YWCA. As a leader and contractor at Las Milipitas Farm in Nuestra Tierra Garden, Monica facilitates gardening and workshops. As a community organizer at the food bank, she teaches food justice workshops. Monica has been a member and founder of Shahun Uleo since 2022, an indigenous group of immigrants from Guatemala and Mexico who live here in the United States. Bienvenido, nos alegra que estás aquí. Here's a quick video to tell you more about Borderlinks.
At Borderlinks, we educate people about border issues so that they can go home, take action, and we can achieve migrant justice.
Yo tengo mi testimonio, pero para mí tal vez no puede ser importante. Pero cuando yo lo cuento y veo las diferentes formas de perspectivas de otra opinión, veo que mi información es importante.
We envision a world where all humans are liberated and we can come together to create just policies for all.
And that's how I see Borderlinks in the future, continuing to be that hub for community organizations and just building that network.
We use popular education as our model, so we see, we think, and we act.
En Borderlinks, nosotros creemos que todos deberían de ver,
Pensar
Y actuar.
After the service in Davis Hall, you'll
At
be able
Borderlinks, we
to
educate people.
see more things about Borderlinks and what both Monica and Ren brought to share with us. We begin our service in the Unitarian Universalist tradition of lighting the chalice, and our chalice lighter this morning is Monica Velasco. Today we light the chalice with these words, a compilation of words by Ruth Wilson Gilmore and Deanne Van Devere. Solidarity is something that is made and remade and remade. It never just is. And I think of it in terms of radical dependency, that we come absolutely to depend on one another. And so solidarity and the radical dependency is about life and living together and living together in rather beautiful ways. And it is possible. It is really possible, and not in a romanticized way, but in a material, deliberate, conscious, exploding way. It is possible. We light this chalice, a symbol of our faith, alive in this world, naming our vision of collected liberation and daring to remember each other into beloved community.
We can't build what we can't imagine. Imagine freedom of movement for all. Everyone in the borderlands thriving. At Borderlinks, our vision is to make this future possible. Today, we invite you to join us and allow ourselves to dream. It is my deep joy to be here with you today, a place and people that I have called my home. And it is also my joy to be here with my friend and colleague, Monica. During the service, I will also be interpreting after Monica shares.
Pues buenos días, yo me siento muy honrada por estar aquí. Represento a esas familias que luchan por estar unidas y miembros comunitarios que se organizan para defender los derechos civiles y humanos, que haya igualdad y justicia en nuestras comunidades inmigrantes. Tenemos la visión de vivir en un mundo justo, libre de fronteras, sin discriminación y opresión a nuestras comunidades y pueblos indígenas de la diáspora de América.
I represent families who fight to be united and community members who organize to defend civil and human rights so that there is quality of life and justice in our migrant communities. We have the vision of living in a more just world, free of borders, without discrimination and oppression of our communities, and that Native peoples, free of borders, without discrimination and oppression of our communities and Native peoples of the diasporas of the Americas. For those present in the sanctuary, please stand in body or spirit and sing our opening hymn, The Fire of Commitment.
From the light of days remembered burns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. And the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion need to call us on our way. When we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the stories of our living rings a strong, both brave and free, calling pilgrims still to witness to the life of liberty. And the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way. When we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the dreams of youthful vision comes a new prophetic voice, which demands a deeper justice built by our courageous choice. And the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way. When we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin.
Thank you, Lena. I love that one. Gets me all excited. But we are going to do our covenant. So if you would please join with me in saying the words to our covenant. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve others in community. Thus do we covenant together. And this morning, Ren and Monica are going to lead us in our joys and sorrows.
In the spirit of radical dependency, we practice what it means to depend on each other and live beautifully in our joys and our sorrows. As we immerse ourselves in a time of meditation and music, we will take a few moments to silently acknowledge the joys and concerns of our hearts and our minds. If there is an event which moves you to joy or concern, hope or gratitude, we invite you to come forward silently and drop a pebble from this dish into our communal water as an affirmation of our connection to one another. May our joys and sorrows be held by the collective. May they become lighter to hold when we hold them together. May the healing water carry them forth. May it be so. Please sing these words of solidarity.
Before we get to the offertory, all of those who have been worship associates know that when you do a service, you see things in a different perspective. So when I stand here, I always see that beautiful quilt back here hanging on the back wall. And for us, it was depicting Granite Mountain and peace flags. Today, I saw it as Mexico, and instead of a border, wouldn't it be lovely if we just had welcome flags hanging in the air? So I've seen it differently today. Thank you. But as we prepare to take the offering this morning, let us embrace the feeling of connection, community, freedom, as we gather here each week. Let us remember that this congregation and its programs are supported by your generosity. We also give back to the greater community through our seeds of support. This month's recipient is Hungry Kids. You can read about them in the order of service. To give online, you can go on the website, and if you're on Zoom, there is a link in the chat. Please enjoy our offertory music. We're all swimming to the other side. Acknowledge the generosity of spirit given in this offering. Blessed be.
The reading today is a poem written by Gloria Anzaldúa, a fundamental, foundational Borderlands thinker. And each of you have copies in your orders of service. We will not be translating the parts we do in Spanish, but you can follow along if you wish.
El otro México. El viento me tira de la manga, mis pies se hunden en la arena. Estoy parada en la orilla donde la tierra toca el océano.
Where the two overlap, a gentle coming together, at other times and places a violent crash.
En el otro lado de la frontera en México, la silueta cruza de las casas destruidas por las olas, los precipicios se deshacen y se caen al mar. Las olas de plata mezcladas con la espuma. Corta un hoyo debajo del cuerpo fronterizo.
Miro el mar atacar la cerca en Border Fields Park, con sus buchones de agua in Easter Sunday resurrection of the brown blood in my veins.
Oigo el llorido del mar, el respire del aire, mi corazón sigue el ritmo del mar. En la neblina gris del sol, el llanto estridente de hambre de las gaviotas, el olor ácido del mar me entra.
I walk through a hole in the fence to the other side. Under my fingers, I feel the gritty wire rested by 139 years of the salty breath of the sea.
Debajo del cielo de hierro, los niños mexicanos patean sus pelotas de fútbol hasta que las corretean entrando a los Estados Unidos.
I press my hand to the steel curtain, chain link fence, crowned with rolled barbed wire, rippling from the sea where Tijuana touches San Diego, unrolling over mountains and plains and deserts. This tortilla curtain, turning into El Rio Grande, flowing down to the flatlands of the Magic Valley of South Texas, its mouth emptying into the Gulf.
Herida abierta de 1.950 millas, que divide a un pueblo, una cultura, corre por mi cuerpo, poncha mi carne con varilla. Me raja, este es mi hogar, esta borde, pues, este borde de púas.
But the skin of the earth is seamless. The sea cannot be fenced. El mar does not stop at borders. To show the white man what she thought of his arrogance, Yemaya blew the wire fence down.
Esta tierra fue mexicana en un momento. Siempre era indígena y todavía lo es, y así será. Yo soy un puente tendido del mundo gabacho al del mojado. Lo paso, me estira para atrás y lo presento para adelante. Que la Virgen de Guadalupe me cuide, ay, 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 soy mexicana de este lado.
The U.S.-Mexico border es una herida abierta, where the third world grates against the first and bleeds. And before a scab forms, it hemorrhages again, the lifeblood of two worlds merging to form a third country, a border culture. Borders are set up to define the places that are safe and unsafe, to distinguish us from them. A border is a dividing line, a narrow strip along a steep edge. A borderland is a vague and undetermined place created by the emotional residue of an unnatural boundary. It is in a constant state of transition. The prohibited and forbidden are its inhabitants. Now, please rise in body or spirit and sing Spirit of Life. We will sing the English and Spanish versions. On the right is a photo taken. On the right is a photo taken of a deer killed by border infrastructure. Militarization interrupts many animals' habitats and migratory routes and has a severe impact on ecosystems through the region. The desert borderlands are full of life and beauty. Like with ecozones, how the edges of convergence are the most biodiverse, here the land, peoples, and cultures thrive. Humans have been migrating for thousands of years. All kinds of animals migrate. It is a natural, beautiful commitment to survival. The desert is our home. It is beautiful, but at the same time, the desert has been weaponized to become the world's deadliest land-based migration route.
Cruce y límites de la frontera. Este mapa muestra entre el año 1998 y el año 2023 todas las muertes. Ahora esta frontera es la que ha causado más muertes en el mundo, con el cruce del muro y con el crecimiento del muro y la militarización de las fronteras, nuestros hermanos migrantes se han visto forzados a caminar en rutas inadecuadas que ponen en peligro y riesgo la vida de ellos y de sus familias para poder llegar a un destino. Esta imagen solo muestra una pequeña cantidad de muertos en Arizona. La realidad es de que es por debajo de los reales números, porque la mayoría no hay restos. Se saben que estuvieron ahí y que fue el último destino. Sus familiares constan de que están en el desierto, donde no pudieron lograr llegar a esas metas, a su destino, ver a sus familias, poderlos abrazar, y ya no tuvieron otro contacto.
This map shows us deaths between the year 1998 and the year 2023. Now this border is the one that has caused the most deaths in the world. With the growth of the wall and the militarization of borders, our migrant siblings have been forced to walk on inadequate routes that put their lives and their families at risk in order to reach their destinations. This image shows only the number of deaths in Arizona. These numbers are below the reality because the majority of missing people can't be counted as deceased because there's no body to be found. But the families know that they are in the desert, which was the last place that they had contact.
Okay. Quiero reconocer que estamos parados en suelos sagrados, que le pertenecen a los ancestros de los pueblos, naciones, tribus, reservas, que han estado por más de 10,000 años, como son los apaches, hopi, navajos, pápagos, yaquis, chiricahuas, comunidades indias, Hakchin, Hacapac, Halcuchin, Dawan, Halkin, Wajin, Wahapi, Coahuapan, Maricopa, Mojave, Hualapi, Yuma, Suñi, Reserva Indígena Cocopá, Yabapay Presco, Yabapay Apache, que se han visto obligados a salir y dejar sus tierras, robándoles sus territorios sagrados. El gobierno está ultrajando los territorios sagrados de los pueblos indígenas de la frontera, explotando con dinamita sus cementerios de Quito Baquito, donde se encuentran sus ancestros de los Tohono O'odham, saqueando sus manantiales para utilizar aguas para las construcciones del muro. Con la militarización podemos mantener y pueden mantener controlada la frontera, pusieron cámaras infrarrojas que pueden mirar alrededor de 7 millas a la redonda. Son muy potentes que pueden llegar a mirar dentro de sus hogares ancestrales de los Tohono O'odham, Ojo y Sabapari, y escuchar la conversación. Esto es una forma de violencia para ellos, porque pueden mirar cuando hacen sus necesidades y toman sus duchas. Eso se llama violencia a su privacidad desde su hogar.
I want to recognize that we are standing on sacred ground that belongs to the ancestors of peoples, nations, and tribes who have been here for more than 10,000 years. As the Apache, Hopis, Navajo, Yaqui, Chiricahuas, Akim, Kukapa, Halchioma, Halyiwamai, Havasupai, Kohuana Maricopa, Mojave, Halupai, Yuma, Zunis, Kokopai, Yavapai Prescott, Yavapai Apache. They have been forced to leave their lands, their sacred territories stolen. The government is violating the sacred territories of indigenous peoples of the border. They're exploiting the land with dynamite. They're exploiting the burial grounds of Quito Baquito Springs, where ancestors of the O'odham peoples are found, looting their springs to use the water for the construction of the wall. With militarization and being able to keep control of the border, they put in infrared cameras, which can look around 7 miles. These are really powerful because they can look inside the ancestral homes of the Tohono people, Hohokam, Isoparui, and listen to conversations. This is a form of violence for them because the Border Patrol can watch when they're doing their business and taking showers, violating privacy of their homes. Part of imagining a world beyond borders requires us to break down the narrative of inevitability. That borders exist now hasn't always been the case. The borders that exist now haven't always been there. This is a picture of Nogales between 1910 to 1920, the monument marking the border between countries. Here there are military agents, but even earlier there were no markers, no agents. Soon after this, in 1924, Border Patrol was created. It has only existed for 100 years. In 2017, I lived in Masailand, Kenya for 3 months. While there, we traveled to the border of Kenya and Tanzania. Standing there, tall grass waving calmly in the wind, I can see elephants in the distance trudging slowly across the land unblocked. There is one concrete block. This is what marks the difference between countries. I took these photos with a delegation in Nogales, Arizona. There are layers of razor wire that were just added a few years ago lining the wall. You can see someone's sweater and shoe left stuck in the razor wire after climbing. During the reading, we saw another photo with a stuffed animal in the wire. I cannot count the number of times I've been standing on this street and watched people climb over. Walls do not stop people from migrating. They only make it more dangerous. This bollard-style wall has been here for 18 years, with a solid wall behind that just since 1994. And ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, was created 21 years ago. If ICE has only existed 2 decades, can we imagine a future in which it does not exist again? Borders reveal the core of society. Is who we really are steel and razor wire, or dignity and humanity? At Borderlinks, we insist on humanity. And I wonder, what are we called to from Unitarian Universalism? There are various types of physical wall along about 700 miles out of the 1,900 mile long linear boundary between the US and Mexico. In addition to checkpoints on every road leading north, surveillance towers, and technologies used by Border Patrol throughout. One example is the surveillance towers made by Elbit System, Israel's largest military company. Starting in 2014 and over the course of 10 years, the United States contracted over $500 million with the Israeli company Elbit Systems to construct 55 integrated fixed towers in southern Arizona. Surveillance, control of movement, and unaccountable use of force are just a few elements of border enforcement that act as ongoing colonization and occupation on the Orem Nation. Petra Molnar, in an interview for Border Chronicle, said, "Tools of apartheid and genocide are not just military weapons. They are facial recognition, drone surveillance, and persistent dehumanization through technology." In the US, we've seen progressives advocate for a virtual wall instead of a physical wall, but we've seen how surveillance leads to more death. This is a dangerous compromise. There's no humane way to militarize the borderlands and its people. We are in a movement moment. People around the world demanding an end to the genocide of the Palestinian people, an end to apartheid and occupation. Here, people make the call, from Arizona to Palestine, all the walls must fall. When something cannot be fixed, then the question is, what can we build instead? As a Jewish person, and from organizing for migrant justice in Arizona over the last decade, I know deep in my bones that our collective safety comes from solidarity, not militarism, violence, or walls. We need a pathway to citizenship for all people who are undocumented in the US now, and we should not have to agree to more militarization to win that. DHS is clear in their vision of a militarized response to climate change and increased displacement. Meanwhile, politicians fall into a trap where they are unwilling to name really open policies because it might be seen as a call for open borders. So they lose people who would want this, but still get criticized by the right for standing for open borders anyway, even as they enforce some of the harshest immigration policies. That is a lose-lose landscape. I believe we must be courageous enough to hold a vision as clear or more clear, one for human dignity with care for all life. When I stand on the hill in Nogales looking at the city, I believe, I truly do, that this wall will fall in my lifetime. I do and I must. We work towards that every day.
Educación popular. Tenemos modernidad, fronteras militarizadas, tecnología, aviones, carros, robots, pero la educación sigue siendo la misma. Como se encuentra o se dice en la historia, los salones no han cambiado, los alumnos y los profesores, los libros. La preparación es importante mediante la educación popular. Pensar, actuar es algo que no ha cambiado. Durante la historia, da valor a las personas basadas en su conocimiento de vida. Transmitimos por generaciones como lo hacen y siguen haciendo los pueblos hermanos de la biosfera, que desde hace 10,000 años ya hablaban de astronomía, alimentación, construcción, medicina, botánica, sanación, escritura, agricultura, conservación de semillas. Todo su conocimiento se lo transmitían a los niños. El rol de los mayores era importante porque ellos oralmente, visual, actuando y haciendo, transmitían su conocimiento y caminaban juntos de la mano con los menores para que ellos adquirieran ese conocimiento. Reconocían sus habilidades y fortalezas para saber qué área podían especializarse, como las curanderas hasta los astrónomos, doctores y profesores. La responsabilidad de los profesores es importante porque todos somos profesores, independientemente de lo que hagan. El conocimiento y la habilidad es un poder para el ser humano. Mediante la capacitación, mediante el capitalismo se ve un cambio drástico porque el rol de profesor y el alumno cambia a un control de lo que puedes saber o conocer. Si tú no tienes la economía suficiente, no tiene la posibilidad para seguir estudiando y poder entrar a la universidad. Te vuelves vacío. Eres parte de la explotación laboral, donde llegas a las fábricas, trabajas más de 8 horas y el sueldo no te alcanza. La educación y preparación pasan a ser último plano. No tienes opción. Quiero recalcar que muy pocos llegan a graduarse o tener una profesión, pero cuando hablamos de la educación popular, todos tenemos un conocimiento y una educación que podemos transmitir, y es importante reconocer que todo ser humano tiene un conocimiento, pero ha estado oprimido por el gobierno o por el sistema que nos hace ignorantes o vuelve ignorante a la sociedad en general. En Borderlands usamos el modelo de educación popular para formar comunidades fuertes, libres de opresión.
With modernity, we have militarized borders, technology, planes, cars, robots, but education remains the same as the story is told. The classrooms have not changed, students and teachers, books. Preparation is important through popular education because we see, we think, we act. That is something that has not changed. Throughout history, there's value given to people based on their knowledge of life, transmitted through generations, as indigenous peoples of the world do and continue to do, who for thousands of years have already been teaching about astronomy, food, construction, medicine, botany, healing, writing, agriculture, seed conservation. All their knowledge was transmitted to the children, the role of the elders being important because they share orally, visually, acting, and by doing. They transmitted their knowledge in walking hand in hand with the minors so that they acquired the knowledge and recognized their abilities and strengths to know in which area they could specialize, such as healers, astronomers, doctors, professors. The responsibility of the teachers is important because we are all teachers, regardless of what we do. That knowledge and skill is a power for human beings. Through capitalism, a drastic change is seen because the role of teacher and student changes. There's control of what you can know or not know. If you do not have enough finances, you do not have the possibility to continue studying and to be able to enter a university. You become part of labor exploited, where you go to factories, you work more than 8 hours and the salary is not enough. Education and preparation become the last priority. You have no option. I want to emphasize that very few manage to graduate or have a profession. But when we talk about popular education, we all have knowledge and education that we can transmit. And it is important to recognize that every human being has knowledge. But this has been oppressed by the government or by the system that makes us ignorant or ignores society. At Borderlinks, we use the popular education model to build strong communities against oppression. Here are some pictures of groups participating in our programming. The butterfly artwork on the left was created by a youth group from a Dallas congregation that came on a delegation with us last year. And we were driving on a portion of the wall near Sasabe when a group of mothers and small children ran across the road in front of us. I slowed the van down and noticed right behind us, Border Patrol was right there. So we pulled off to the side of the road and witnessed as Border Patrol started putting people into the van. Due to the new CBP-1 app, a lot of people seeking asylum are arriving and presenting themselves at the border in the desert because there's limited appointments at the ports of entry and people can't wait. And so we know that after this, the group would go to a station in detention or a shelter and hopefully have a chance to pursue their cases. But we also know that a very slim % of asylum cases are won. And I could tell that this experience is very profound, impacting the group as they're grappling with the feeling of wanting to take action and feeling powerless. And so I told them, let this be a seed that you plant that you may not be able to take action right now, but let it fuel you for the future. And during the reflection, they created these butterflies. So you might recognize a few ministers in the top left corner of that picture. These are different delegations that have come and participated in Borderlinks programming. And we recognize that to reimagine is to confront all of our past conditionings, envision the future, and take tangible action towards it. And that's what we're doing in our delegations at Borderlinks. So my invitation to you all, beloveds, is to come to the Borderlands. We would love to build relationship with you and engage in more deep, longer educational experiences. Solidarity is remade and remade. It never just is. There's words of a song that I love dearly that I'll read. We will not underestimate our power any longer. We know that together we are strong. Like drops of water shape the rock as they roll down the sea. We know that together we are strong. And Kelsey told me very strictly to time ourselves and be on time, but we're gonna go a few minutes over, so please have patience with us and forgive us.
El momento más esperado. La acción. ¿Cómo la gente puede dar su poder? Cuando hacemos acción. Hablamos sobre la educación popular. Ver, pensar, actuar. Ya ustedes miraron. Ya escucharon sobre lo que es el problema de tener fronteras militarizadas y que el sistema de inmigración está causando mucha ruptura en las familias, traumas psicológicos, a los niños, a las madres crean un gran estrés en su vida, que eso puede afectar en sus relaciones diarias. Las familias viven por años y décadas en este país con miedo a relacionarse, y me incluyo en esa, para que no sean identificadas, que no tienen un estatus. Tienen hijos aquí, pagan sus impuestos, trabajan sin documentos, vendiendo comida, cuidando niños, limpiando las casas, las yardas, restaurantes, hoteles, en diferentes lugares, con un sueldo bajo, del mínimo. Solo alcanza para cubrir parte de los biles y necesidades. Hay personas que tienen una preparación académica que están en este país y no son válidas y se sienten desilusionados de ellos mismos porque no pueden ejercer lo que estudiaron. En Arizona está la SB 70, que hace a una persona criminal. Me incluyo en esa. En cualquier forma, porque cruzó por el desierto de la manera ilegal. Si no hay una forma más fácil de poder entrar en Estados Unidos, va a continuar habiendo ese cruce, porque sus pueblos están en conflicto, no tienen que comer, tienen que huir de sus tierras. Es lo que ha pasado cuando el gobierno de Estados Unidos mete sus narices en otros países. Tienen el control, la manipulación, y esto por los intereses políticos y económicos. Está Guatemala, México, Honduras, Salvador, Nicaragua, y así podemos seguir la lista hasta llegar a las guerras, como la reciente en Gaza y otras más. Mientras que ustedes puedan hacer ese cambio a nivel estatal, se puede crear y se puede integrar a las personas que no tienen un estatus. Vamos a poder tener unos cambios a nivel estado, tanto las pólizas, leyes. Van a porque las personas van a dejar de ser sombras, van a ser validadas, nos van a mirar como seres humanos, parte de ustedes. Dios nos habla que amemos al prójimo. Y cómo no, si nos da un claro ejemplo. Si tenemos 2 abrigos, démonos uno al más necesitado. Gracias.
People have power when we take action. We talked about popular education, what it means to see, think, and act. You've already heard about the problems of having a militarized border and that the immigration system is causing a lot of ruptures in families, psychological trauma for people, children, mothers. It creates great stress in their lives that can affect their daily relationships. Families who have lived for years and decades in this country with fear of interacting so that they are not identified, who do not have a status, who have children here, pay their taxes, work without documents, selling food, caring for children, cleaning yards, cleaning houses in restaurants, hotels, and different jobs with salary below minimum wage that can only cover part of their basic expenses. There are people who have academic training in their countries and it is not valid here, and they feel disempowered because they cannot practice what they studied. In Arizona, there's the law SB 1070 and other laws that make a person that criminalize people, and I'm included in that, for crossing through the desert unauthorized. But if there is no easier way to enter the United States, there will continue to be that crossing because people's towns are in conflict. They do not have to eat. They do not have food to eat, and they must flee their lands. This is what has happened when the United States government gets involved in other countries, that they have controlled or manipulated other countries for both political and economic interests. Guatemala, Mexico, Honduras, Salvador, Nicaragua. This will continue going as long as there are wars like the most recent one in Gaza and others. You all have the ability to make change at the state level, to create policies and laws that integrate people who do not have a status. Then we'll be able to have a change at the state level, and people will stop being invalidated and be seen as humans, as part of you all. God tells us to love our neighbors and gives us a clear example that if you have 2 jackets, give 1 jacket to another in need. Let's watch a video called Undocujoy.
I love my undocumented people. I love us because every day we wake up to a country that hates us. We wake up, give thanks to God, and go to work. Watch the news, hear how our own TVs vilify us. We change the channel and pray that tomorrow will be a better day for us. When they give us a little breathing room, we make the most of it. We're so grateful that often we forget we deserve better. That all this mess is not our fault. We stay low on the radar. Want peace? Want to exist without the added stress of having to be public about where our spirits ache. We just want to go to work to feed our families, yet we become scapegoats to a system that is addicted to exploiting the poor. I love my undocumented people because the way our spirits are toyed with, you need some unfathomable strength. I love us because we have constantly had to prove our humanity and constantly done it beautifully Because to stay human under these conditions, you have to have an understanding of beauty. I love us. Even when our stories are manipulated and exploited, even when we are presented as gloom and doom narratives, I love us. Because at the end of the day, somehow we always manage to make something out of nothing. I love my undocumented people because being undocumented is not political, it's not physical, it is a condition created to keep us from smiling. But look at us, thriving.
It is important to create art to process what is, and is it important to create art that allows us to imagine and move towards a future together. Together, we are envisioning our desert home in the future after the wall has been swept away by the river. Literally, sections have come down this way, and figuratively, the river of social movements. And we are left with abundance and a thriving ecosystem.
Aprendemos por la fuerza del río, lo que podemos hacer juntos cuando nuestra única gota de agua se une al colectivo. Creamos en nuestro poder. Nos damos permiso para creer realmente que un mundo más justo es posible.
We learn by the force of the river what we can do together when our single drop of water is joined with the collective. We believe in our power. We give ourselves permission to really believe a more just world is possible. Thank you.
Gracias. I can't imagine myself going to a congregation and speaking to an entire congregation that only speaks Spanish. It takes courage, it takes guts, and I really, really appreciate that you brought Monica with you. I think it's important. But we are going to extinguish the chalice. So with the extinguishing of the chalice, our worship time has ended, and now our service begins. We're going to say these words as Monica extinguishes the flame. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you. This is now time for the folks on Zoom. You can go into a breakout room and chat with other people. I am sorry you missed the slides, but you can watch the service again if you want to see the pictures that you missed. For those here